Hi guys, welcome to Origin. It's still the same day, I'm still shooting videos. There's the added issue now though of working against the sun. So I'm going to have to be as quick as I possibly can with these videos. I want to talk about something I touched on in the last video, and that's the issue of dogma and opinions being logical instead of based on emotion. Now, I believe it was Coughlin who said we're all fundamentalist about something. The absolute perfect example of this would be Thunderfoot in Islam. Another would probably be Nuclear Knight in feminism. And there is no doubt about it that I will probably have some fundamentalist position of my own. And if that ever comes up, I want people to come down hard on me, and I want people to try and identify it as a fundamentalist position if you think that is the case. Now, of course, that will probably be abused. It'll probably be, if some people disagree with me, oh, you have a fundamentalist position on this. No, you have to identify the dogma, you have to explain where it is. So I'm going to develop this topic in this video. For example, let's say that someone is racist towards a particular group of people. They've gone to some country, and what's happened is, while they were there, they were assaulted. They were quite badly injured, and after the experience, they developed a distrust for anyone of that particular nationality. Now, it would be completely illogical to say that anyone of that nationality was either a murderer or a want-to-be murderer or someone who condones it. But this guy has this position because of an emotional reaction, because of personal involvement with that particular group of people that has been negative. Their personal experience has been of a group of people of that nationality assaulting them in the street. Now, what I want you to do right now, and you can pause the video if you want to do this in depth, but I certainly encourage you to do so, is to go back through your own life. Think of the most traumatic things that have happened to you. Think of any run-ins you might have had with certain people. Think of any bad experiences. And then think about how they relate to who you are now, what you believe today. Now, this is something that I never stop doing. And the reason why I want to encourage people to do this is actually for another thing I touched in the last video. And that's making your own position more based on reality. You see, dogma is not just the result of religious indoctrination. It can be the result of a lot of different types of indoctrination. Those traumatic experiences that you might have had are just one example. I'm going to give you an example with the goal that this will hopefully inspire everyone watching to really commit to what I just said from my own life. Now, I've made no secret of the fact that I hate money. I've said it in many different videos, and it's been a very important basis on me condoning and approving of things like the Venus Project. This is something I haven't talked about for some time. I don't want to get into this on this particular video, but one thing I do recognise is that because of my dislike of money, and I'm going to explain where it came from in a second, I have this distrust, perhaps even hatred towards capitalism and the idea of us competing to survive, competing to get money, which we need to have any decent quality of life. This is something I fundamentally disagree with, and a lot of it's down to my dislike of money. Now, where did this come from? Well, I went to a private high school. I don't have any great experience of being, really wealthy or really poor, but I was constantly aware that money was being spent on me to go to this school, and even now I feel like I have to achieve something because of all the money that's been spent, because of what my parents have sacrificed to send me to that school. I want to do something with that, and I don't want it all to go to waste. I feel an enormous pressure to do that, and this pressure is down to money, because money was spent on me. Now, there are other things which I would say are just as significant. My everyday observations of how people react to having money. You know, you have celebrities with millions of pounds or millions of dollars, in some cases billions, and while they might give some of it to charity, in the end they still have many millions, many billions, which they do nothing with. You know, they don't even spend it on themselves. They might spend some of it on a mansion or a, Bugatti Veyron or whatever, but in the end they've still got all that money which they have in their bank account, which they're doing nothing with. And if they gave a significant amount of that away, like maybe even 70 or 80%, how many people could you help with that much money who have next to nothing? And of course the third world is actually a contributing factor as well. And my main point is that my dislike of money could result in me having a dogmatic position. It's possible that my position on the Venus Project is dogmatic. And I've been trying to analyse this. That's why I've not been talking about it, because I've been seriously questioning it. I haven't looked at the Venus Project in detail. I've forgotten quite a lot of what they do. But there have been some unresolved issues. One in particular is that about a year ago I had a conversation with just a European guy who claimed that the Venus Project was identical to communism. Now, at the time, and even now, I couldn't refute anything he said. At the same time, the Venus Project themselves are trying to distance themselves from communism, and it's pretty obvious why. I mean, communism is pretty much a slur. It has enormous negative connotations. You know, you have the Red Scare in the 50s, you've got, Stalin. Communism is not a very popular topic at all. But I can't disagree with what just a European guy said, based on what I currently know about the Venus Project and communism, which I found, communism in particular, I found incredibly difficult to research. I mean, the Venus Project have some specifics laid out about their society, which I haven't seen from communism, although I haven't really looked at any major works. I've just been looking on the internet so far, so I don't know. But that's an example of a position that I have that may very well be dogmatic. Now, having done that, I want you to think about whether there are any parallels with you. What do you dislike, and what effect might it have on a position which would otherwise be logical? Maybe you have a dislike of something, but your position still is logical. But it's still worth questioning those positions. Now, let's talk about the obvious issue. If you have a position that's so dogmatic that it's based on tons and tons of emotional baggage, you will find that position incredibly difficult to question. You won't want to question it. Because the moment you try and do that, your repulsion for whatever it is will try and stop you. You'll think, no, this is a perfectly logical position, even if it's not. I'll give you one more. Now, many of you will already know that YouTube user Variablast has been talking about the word nigger quite a lot recently. He's been trying to get the word to mean human. Now, the majority view on this issue is, it's not a good idea. There are many objections to it. I don't want to go into this in depth, but I'm not in that majority. I do actually, as I've said in a previous video, support what he's doing. But because I'm in the minority, this is a position which I constantly question. And I said this in my blog. The reason why I support it is that it's well-intentioned, and given specifically what it is he's trying to do, which isn't fighting racism, it's fighting censorship and fighting for name freedom, I think that's a worthwhile cause. I don't think it's pointless at all. But, I also recognise one thing, and that's that Variablast has had an incredibly tough time with this. I mean, he's been hit in the back of the head by someone whose kids he was interviewing, which I will say right now, that was a pretty bad idea, Variablast. It was ballsy, but it probably wasn't very smart. He can't get a job, obviously because of his name, also because of his face tattoos and, the the tons of tattoos that he has. And while some people say, well, that's his choice, I don't see this as a point of contention because he shouldn't be punished for these choices. I don't think, I think it's ridiculous that we react this way to these particular choices. So there is potential for dogma in the fact that, I greatly sympathise with him for what he's been through and the sheer magnitude of the task in front of him. And it's possible, well, I don't know exactly to what extent, that might have caused me to miss some really obvious things which, on a logical basis completely destroy this idea that it's a good idea what he's doing. So those are two different examples of how dogma can come about. As I've said, and I want to repeat this because it is important and it's not easy, I want you to try and question your own dogma. First identify it and then see if you can get around it. Is it fair to criticise that group of people because some of them attacked you in the street? Is someone you like doing something which really is a bad idea, and because you like them you're a bit hesitant to try and distance yourself from that, to actually disagree with them? Do you just agree with everything someone says on the basis that you believe they're a very intelligent person and they're not going to steer you wrong? Is that particularly wise? And is there something that you particularly hate that might sway your opinion on something else? All of these things must be considered, and they must be considered very carefully, because it's not going to be a snap to get rid of all that dogma. But I highly encourage everyone to try their best. That's all we can realistically ask of you, and hopefully you succeed. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.